Well, hello, and welcome to my latest video. Movie review time. Blonde, written and directed by Andrew Dominic and starring Ana de Armas as Marilyn Monroe. Or is it? What's it like? Is it any good? Should you spend your money? I suppose the first thing to say is it's actually on Netflix, so you spend your money if you've got a subscription to Netflix. But I think it's also coming out on the cinema anyway. I saw it on Netflix. I saw it last night. 2.75 hours. I'm just going to let that sink in for a moment. 2.75 hours. Anyway, and I did watch the whole of it. Okay, I did watch the whole of it, and did I enjoy it? Well, I suppose I better leave that till the end. Now, I said, is it? Well, is it a biopic of Marilyn? Because I was just looking on IMDb, and it says things like the playwright, i.e., in the cast list, who plays the playwright. Well, why doesn't it say Arthur Miller? And who plays the athlete? Well, why doesn't it say Joe DiMaggio? So, I mean, maybe, I suppose it's not entirely a biopic. What it is a filmed version of a book called Blonde by Joyce Carol Oates, which I'm not sure whether it's a novel or whether it's a biography, and I will be honest and say I have not read it. I have read quite a few other biographies of Marilyn. Now, I first got to know Marilyn, as if we were like, we were just good friends. I first got to know Marilyn when I was about 16, 17, I suppose, and I was at my parents' house for Christmas, and I had to sleep on the floor in the living room. I can't remember why. I didn't spend my whole life sleeping on the floor in the living room, but that's another story. Anyway, and it was Christmas Eve, and it was late on Christmas Eve, and they put Some Like It Hot on. I had never seen it before. I suppose I was aware of Marilyn Monroe. What teenager in those years, in any years, was not aware of Marilyn Monroe? But and the film blew me away. I'll be honest, it blew me away. And I've probably seen it, I don't know, 6 times, 8 times, 10 times. I reckon I have seen it more than I have seen any other film. And what can I say? I was blown away. So this is a kind of biopic about, yes, Marilyn Monroe, about her tragic life. But I think the thing about it, and it goes through, she had a very difficult childhood. She didn't know who her father was. Her mother was very, very badly afflicted with mental illness. And Marilyn kind of drifted into the movies. And yes, I suspect the casting couch was necessary. Was it Marilyn who said once she became a star, that's the last cock I ever suck? Or was it just every female actress in Hollywood? Anyway, about how she becomes a star, she gets into the movies, and then she meets and marries Joe DiMaggio, divorces him after a couple of years, then meets and marries Arthur Miller, divorces him after a couple of years, and then tragically dies before having an affair. Sorry. And then has an affair with John Kennedy before tragically dying. Now, it goes through all of that. It puts in an affair with 2 people. Now, I may be the only person in the world who does not or did not know this about Marilyn. There are 2 bisexual young gentlemen, let us call them, Edward G. Robinson Jr., who I assume, and again, I'm making a lot of assumptions here, was the son of Edward G. Robinson, and Charlie Chaplin Jr., who I assume was the son of Charlie Chaplin. Now, I have never heard that she had a liaison with these 2 gentlemen, and in effect a menage a trois, lived together, which is pretty much how it's portrayed in the film. I have no idea whether that's true or not. There's quite a lot of time spent on it. I'm not sure for what great reason. The thing about the film, and Marilyn had, I think we could all agree, in many respects, a pretty sad life and a pretty unhappy life and a pretty tragic life. But I don't think her whole life was sad and unhappy and tragic. And the way this is presented, she kind of skirts a thin line of madness. and distress, largely as a consequence, or it is portrayed largely as a consequence of not knowing who her father was. And throughout the film, she gets letters from her father. Now, I don't know whether that's true, whether she got letters from her father, but she never met. My understanding was that she didn't know who her father was, but I may have been wrong about that. She calls all the men in her life daddy, which may, have a bearing on daddy issues, or it may just be a term of affection, who knows. But I think what it tries to do, the film, is it tries to do too much, and there's too much kind of psychoanalysis. There's too much trying to understand or get inside Marilyn's skin, and what it doesn't really do is it. Ana de Armas is brilliant. Let me say that. I think she's really good. I'm not quite sure she's as voluptuous as Marilyn certainly was in Some Like It Hot. Now, Ana de Armas is quite slim, and we do see her not completely naked, but we do often see her topless, actually. And I'm not sure she was entirely as voluptuous as Marilyn was, but that's another matter. The resemblance is good, the acting is brilliant, the voice is very good. And the recreation of some of the various scenes in the movies is very well done. The famous scene from The 7-Year Itch where she stands over the subway grating is very well done. Interestingly enough, they recreate a scene from Some Like It Hot, but the only bit that they recreate is the bit where Ana de Armas plays Marilyn. In other words, the bit where she interacts with Tony Curtis is done by interposing her with the actual film of Tony Curtis from Some Like It Hot. Now, why do they do that? Because Tom, what's his name? I can't remember his name. The guy from 7-Year Itch. That's all recreated. And the scene over the grate is recreated. But this particular scene from Some Like It Hot is not. Curious, I thought. And there's lots of scenes in the film where there's kind of sunlight shining through. There's lots of bits that are out of focus. There are lots of bits of kind of fogginess, which I suppose is supposed to, illustrate Marilyn's fogginess of mind and the shafts of light that come through and break up. There's kind of bokeh effect that you get in the cinema. And some of it is just, it's just a bit too pretentious. It's just a bit too weird, I suppose. A bit too kind of, oh, for fuck's sake, And the bit that we can't know Marilyn. We didn't know Marilyn. We know her as an icon of the cinema. We know her as an actress that we love to watch in a few films, although many of her films you don't see these days, but Some Like It Hot you do. And she had this kind of tragic arc of life, and of course, because she died at the age of 36 from what may or may not have been a suicide or an accidental overdose, it's not made clear in the film, and as far as I know, it's not clear in real life either. At least they don't try and imply that she was murdered by the mafia, which I think some mad conspiracy theorists believe. There's a scene where she goes to visit John Kennedy. He's lying on the bed and she gives him a blowjob. And you think, well, I don't know what level of affair she had with John Kennedy. Now, it may be that they were two pretty attractive, very famous people, and they just kind of fancied the arse off each other, and they just, they shagged for a bit and then they split up. It may not have been any more than that. It may have been the great love of her life. It may have been the great love of his life. I doubt it in either way. But the way it's portrayed in the film is rather unpleasant and it's rather dirty. Now, it may be, and I'm doing that a lot in this review, it may well be that their affair was just kind of grubby and dirty, and she flew in and gave him a blowjob and then flew back to Los Angeles. But it may not have been. It may not have been. And to portray it in this way kind of cheapens Marilyn. She was she was a very strong character, I think. She was a very knowing character, I think. I think she knew, actually, an awful lot about what she was doing with her career and about how she behaved. And she wasn't this kind of crazy, dumb, ditzy blonde that she's often portrayed as in the film. She knew what she was doing very well with her career. She was a very sharp woman, a very beautiful woman, a very intelligent woman who was badly used by Hollywood, badly used, I suppose, by the men in her life. Although that's one of the things you see her, again, as my understanding is that she had a very strong love affair with Joe DiMaggio, and Joe DiMaggio certainly loved Marilyn and arranged, it's one of those kind of apocryphal stories, arranged for a dozen red roses to be placed on her grave every 3 days forever. Just let that sink in a bit. Just let that sink in if you have somebody in your life who would do that for you when you died. So, and the way it's portrayed in this film, he's very dark. When I say dark, swarthy, and in a very Italian mafia kind of Godfather way. And the pictures I've seen of Joe DiMaggio, not that many again, I'm making a lot of assumptions in that film, he didn't look like that. Anyway, he's portrayed as very much a kind of traditional Italian man, if you like. And that may have been what caused their marriage to founder. Who knows at the end of the day. And he's played by Bobby Cannavale, by the way. That sounds a bit Italian to me. And Arthur Miller, who's called the playwright, by the way, in the cast list. He's not called Arthur Miller, so maybe that gives you a clue. But it's obviously Arthur Miller. He's played by Adrian Brody. Now, it doesn't look anything like Arthur Miller. You say, well, that doesn't matter. Well, I kind of think it does, actually. And their relationship is portrayed, well, again, who knows how close to life it is. And that's the trouble, isn't it? That's the trouble. I don't know how well Joyce Carol Oates knew Marilyn. She may have been good friends with her. She may have never met her. I have no idea. So this book on which this film is based might be all true. On the other hand, large parts of it may be completely made up from the this psychoanalytical 2022 wokeness. God, say that. As opposed to, does one see what made Marilyn light up the screen? Yes, to a certain extent one does, and Ana de Armas is very good in that sense. Can one see why Marilyn is still such an icon of the cinema? Yes and no. But I said earlier in this review that I thought she was ill-used by the movie industry, like, let's face it, practically all women were at that time. And many of the men, let's face it, under contract, although for slightly different reasons. Has she been ill-used by this film? Yes, I think, in a way. I think she has. I think her legacy is greater than this. I think she deserved more than this. I think she's been ill-used by this film to say something about Andrew Dominic and Joyce Carol Oates. And, you know, it says more about them than Cash ever can. And it says more about them than it says about Marilyn. So my advice to you would be, should you go and see it? No. I would say find Some Like It Hot on Netflix or Amazon Prime. I'm sure it's on one of them. And if it isn't, then buy the DVD and watch that and just see for yourself how Marilyn lit up and continues and will, for all time, continue to light up the screen wherever movies are watched or made. Thanks for watching. See you next time.